My transition to college was supposed to be an exciting adventure into adulthood, a journey of self-discovery, and the pursuit of knowledge. Little did I know that my college experience would take a nightmarish turn, leading me through a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. I arrived on campus with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The sprawling campus seemed both impressive and intimidating. My parents helped me move into my dorm room, which was a tiny space that would be my home for the next few years. My roommate Mark was friendly enough, and we quickly settled into a routine. As the semester settled in, so did the heavy load of coursework. The library became my second home, and late nights were spent poring over textbooks and typing away at assignments. It was during one of these late-night study sessions that things began to take an eerie turn. I had lost track of time and found myself alone in the dimly lit library. The air was heavy with the scent of old books, and the distant hum of the air conditioning seemed to magnify the silence. I was focused on my laptop screen when I became aware of a faint whispering sound. At first I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me, but the whispers persisted, growing slightly louder and more distinct. I looked around, expecting to see another student studying nearby, but the library was empty, or so I thought. My heart pounded as the whispers seemed to converge around me, echoing in my ears but never revealing their source. I gathered my belongings and practically fled the library, my footsteps echoing loudly in the hallway. It was only when I was back in the bustling dormitory that I began to feel a semblance of safety. I tried to rationalize the experience, blaming exhaustion and stress for my auditory hallucination. Days passed and I managed to put the incident out of my mind, chalking it up to a bizarre anomaly. But then the nightmares began. Vivid, unsettling dreams that left me waking in a cold sweat, my heart racing. In each dream I found myself back in that library, surrounded by shadowy figures whispering unintelligible words. Their voices were a cacophony of fear and dread that seemed to seep into my very soul. With each passing day, I felt like I was being watched, the sensation of eyes boring into my back becoming unbearable. I started avoiding the library altogether, opting for coffee shops in my own dorm room for study sessions. But the feeling of being observed persisted, even in the sanctuary of my living space. One evening, Mark asked me if I was okay. He had noticed my increasingly frazzled demeanor, the dark circles under my eyes, and my uncharacteristic jumpiness. I hesitated, wondering if I should share my experiences with him. But eventually, I decided to confide in him about the whispers, the nightmares, and the unshakable feeling of being watched. To my surprise, Mark's expression grew somber as I recounted my experiences. He told me that he had been having similar dreams, that he too had heard the whispers in the library, and that the feeling of being watched had become a constant presence in his life. The realization that I wasn't alone in this nightmare brought little comfort, only further confirming the haunting reality of our experiences. Desperation led us to research the history of the campus and the library. We delved into old records, searching for any clues that might explain the source of our torment. It was during one late-night research session that we stumbled upon an old news article from decades ago. It detailed a fire that had consumed a portion of the campus, including the library. The article mentioned that during the fire, several students had been trapped in the library, their desperate screams and pleas for help engulfed by the roaring flames. Mark and I exchanged horrified looks, realizing that the whispers we had heard might be the echoes of those final moments, trapped in a haunting loop of suffering. We shared our findings with the campus authorities, hoping that some action would be taken. But as the weeks went by, nothing changed. Our experiences only intensified, the shadows growing darker, the whispers more persistent. It was as if the restless spirits were angered by our attempts to uncover their past. One fateful night, Mark and I found ourselves back in the library, driven by a desperate need to confront whatever was plaguing us. The air was thick with tension as we stood in the eerie silence waiting. And then the whispers began swirling around us like a storm of torment. But this time we stood our ground. With a mixture of fear and determination, we addressed the whispers, speaking aloud, acknowledging the pain and suffering of the trapped spirits. As we spoke, the air seemed to shift, the shadows receding. And then, a final mournful whisper seemed to hang in the air before fading away. From that night on, the library felt different. The feeling of being watched had lifted. The whispers were gone, replaced by a sense of peace. Mark and I went on to finish our degrees, forever bonded by our shared nightmare experience. The campus seemed to shed its eerie atmosphere, returning to the bustling center of learning it was meant to be. But the memory of those haunted nights lingers, a reminder that even in the hallowed halls of academia, there can be dormant horrors waiting to awaken. And sometimes, it takes confronting those horrors head-on to find the peace that was stolen away. Entering college was a mix of nerves and excitement. The prospect of new friends, opportunities, and independence filled me with anticipation. However, the unexpected twists that unfolded during my freshman year were far from the typical college experiences I had imagined, leading me down a disturbing path of secrets and revelations. My roommate was named Max. He was tall, with messy brown hair and a laid-back demeanor that initially put me at ease. Our initial conversations flowed smoothly, and we seemed to share similar tastes in music and movies. The first few weeks felt promising as we navigated the new environment and tried to find our routines. But as the semester wore on, I began to notice something off about Max's behavior. He had an odd habit of disappearing for hours on end, often returning late at night with disheveled hair and a faraway look in his eyes. When I asked where he had been, he'd brush it off with vague excuses about hanging out with friends or going for long walks to clear his head. Late one night as I was studying at my desk, I noticed Max huddled over his laptop, engrossed in something that seemed intense. The pale glow of the screen illuminated his tense expression, and his fingers typed away furiously. I couldn't help but wonder what could captivate his attention so intensely during the late hours of the night. I decided to address the issue, my concern for Max's well-being outweighing any awkwardness. One evening, as we sat in our room, I brought up the subject carefully. "Hey Max," I began. "I've noticed that you've been acting a bit distant lately. Is everything okay?" He looked up from his phone, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just dealing with some stuff, you know." I could tell there was more to the story, but I didn't want to pry. Still, the unease gnawed at the back of my mind, making me wonder if there was something deeper going on. As weeks turned into months, Max's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He'd often spend hours pacing our room, muttering to himself, his eyes darting around as if he were haunted by his own thoughts. The unease I felt around him intensified, but I couldn't pinpoint what exactly was wrong. One night, unable to sleep, I overheard Max talking on the phone. His voice was hushed, but words like regret, fear, and closure reached my ears. The sense of secrecy and desperation that his words carried left me with a feeling of unease that wouldn't dissipate. Unable to ignore my concerns any longer, I decided to approach Max about the situation. We sat down in our room, the tension palpable. "Max, I've noticed something's been bothering you," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "Is there something you want to talk about?" He hesitated, his eyes fixed on the floor. After a deep breath, he began to share his story, a story of his troubled past, a mistake he had made in his hometown, a secret he had been carrying with him. The details were vague, but his guilt and pain were clear. As he spoke, I realized that Max was haunted by something he couldn't escape. He had been involved in an accident that had taken a life, and he had carried the weight of that guilt to college, unable to find the closure he needed. He hadn't been disappearing randomly. He had been grappling with his own demons, his past actions casting a shadow over his present. I sat in stunned silence, grappling with the heaviness of his confession. The room that had once been a place of camaraderie now felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in on us. After that conversation, Max began seeking professional help to address his guilt and trauma. His demeanor gradually changed as he opened up to a therapist about the incident that had haunted him for so long. Our interactions became less strained, and while we didn't become best friends, there was an understanding between us, a shared acknowledgement of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of even the most ordinary-seeming people. As the years passed, I often wondered how Max's journey unfolded. I hoped he found the closure he needed and that he was able to move forward from the mistakes of his past. My college experience, which had begun with excitement and anticipation, had transformed into a sobering reminder of the complex hidden struggles that individuals might carry with them. It taught me that beneath the veneer of everyday interactions, there could lie a world of pain and remorse, waiting to be uncovered. College life had been a whirlwind of new experiences, newfound independence and forging lasting friendships. But one fateful night, the illusion of safety shattered as the darkness of reality seeped into my world. A night that would forever be etched in my memory as a chilling encounter with the unexpected. I was in my sophomore year, living in a bustling dormitory that buzzed with energy day and night. The friendships I had formed with my dorm mates and the sense of community made the place feel like a second home. Little did I know that this sense of security was about to be brutally tested. It was a typical Friday night, and I had spent the evening hanging out with friends in the common area, playing games and sharing stories. As the clock struck midnight, exhaustion set in, and I decided to call it a night. I bid my friends farewell and headed back to my dorm room, ready to sink into my bed and drift off into sleep. The hallway was dimly lit as I walked towards my room, my footsteps echoing against the walls. Upon reaching the door, I realized it was slightly ajar, an unsettling sight that sent a shiver down my spine. My heart raced, the unease growing as I pushed the door open cautiously. The room was cloaked in darkness save for the faint glow of the streetlights filtering through the window blinds. Something felt off, a sense of intrusion that hung heavy in the air. My gaze scanned the room, and that's when I saw it, the silhouette of a figure standing near my desk. Fear gripped me, rendering me momentarily frozen. The intruder seemed just as startled, his body tense and alert. For a moment that felt like an eternity, our eyes locked, a silent standoff that carried the weight of imminent danger. Without a second thought, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my trembling fingers struggling to type in the numbers. The dispatcher's voice was a lifeline of reassurance as I whispered the situation to her, my heart pounding so loudly that I was sure the intruder could hear it. As the dispatcher assured me that help was on the way, the intruder made a swift and silent escape through the window, the same window that had let in the chilling streetlight glow. I watched his shadowy figure disappear into the night, leaving behind an eerie emptiness. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive, my heart still racing, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. When the officers finally came, they took my statement and combed through the room for any evidence the intruder might have left behind. The ordeal left me feeling violated and unsafe in a place that had once been a sanctuary. The police assured me that they were doing everything they could to catch the perpetrator, but the knowledge that someone had invaded my personal space lingered like a haunting specter. Eventually, news came that the intruder had been apprehended, a transient individual with a history of break-ins. Knowing that he was no longer a threat eased some of my anxiety, but the memory of that chilling encounter continued to cast a shadow over my college experience. The incident served as a stark reminder that safety is never guaranteed, even in the most familiar surroundings. It taught me to be more cautious, to value the bonds of friendship and community that had helped me through the ordeal. And while the scars of that night may never fully fade, they serve as a testament to the resilience and unity that can arise in the aftermath of terror.